Boom! It's horse beef. What's going on, everybody? I wanted to talk about the new co-main event for UFC 324. Really ahead of my full card breakdown, I wanted to talk about this fight specifically, Sean O'Malley versus Song Yadong, because I know many people think that it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that Song Yadong has nothing for Sean O'Malley, and Sean is just going to make easy work of him, right? Knock him out, skate around the octagon for 3 rounds, piece him up to a decision, right? Essentially, everyone and their mothers believe that Sean O'Malley is going to make easy work of this dude. And I'm not sure it's that simple. Now, first and foremost, I want to talk about the resumes of each and the levels of competition, right? Because Song Yadong, right, he has been pushed by the UFC on certain occasions, right? Being a Chinese fighter. And, you know, of course, the UFC wants a fighter who is Chinese at the top of the sport, right? It's a massive market. So there's no question as to why they'd want to capture that market. But the way that Song Yadong has been pushed is not like an industry plant. He's actually paid his dues every step of the way against decent competition, right? And at his age, he's still only 28 years old, right? That type of experience during his development, I believe, will pay massive dividends going into this one, because while Song Yadong was going up against fighters like Julio Arce, who's underrated, right? Kyler Phillips, Casey Kenny, guys like that, Sean O'Malley was going up against Eddie Wineland, right? Marlon Vera, of course, which is a fight that he lost, right? But Thomas Almeida and Chris Moutinho. Thomas Almeida was on his way out. I think that was like his 4th or 5th loss in a row. And Chris Moutinho was signed specifically to get beat up by Sean. And it wasn't even a legitimate finish in the end. And of course, he looked very impressive, right? He pieced him up, but he was supposed to piece up Chris Moutinho. Is anyone actually impressed by that? He then gets a nonsensical matchup with Rolian Paiva, which was clearly just set up so that Sean O'Malley could once again clip farm on a shitty opponent, right? And keep in mind that Rolian Paiva, after that loss, went on to lose one more fight before getting cut from the UFC. So clearly he was on his way out regardless. He then goes and looks very unimpressive against Pedro Munoz, picks up the no contest, and is rewarded with a number 1 contender fight against Peter Yan, in which he robs him. And I mean, not necessarily him, but the judges rob Peter Yan. Sean O'Malley then gets the very conveniently timed title shot against Aljamain Sterling, right? And it was made very clear with his little in-cage spat with Aljamain Sterling, where he's talking about, you better get ready to cut weight, and all that shit. He's essentially letting Aljamain Sterling know, hey man, you're going to have to turn around quickly.
You better hope you look better than that.
I know you got a whole year.
Better than
you
that.
got a whole year to work on your jiu-jitsu.
You better be ready to cut weight.
Daddy Dana
You better
ain't
be ready
gonna
to cut weight.
no more.
You better be
Daddy
ready to go
Dana ain't
again,
gonna
baby.
babysit
You
more.
better go again.
In the big
Soon,
one,
real soon.
baby.
Get ready to cut weight.
Giants in the big
Real
one,
soon. You better look better than that. Better than that. You better look better than that. You look like you better be able to cut weight real soon.
Like, damn, so much charisma from Sean O'Malley in that moment.
You better get ready to cut weight. You look like shit out there, man. I have Dana White privilege, so you better get ready to cut weight really soon so that circumstances favor me in some sort of a way, man. To give me the highest chance possible of winning this belt, you better get ready to cut weight real soon, man. You look like poo-poo out there. You look like poop.
Which is fucked up, which is pretty fucked up, but it just shows how much of an industry plant Sean O'Malley always was, man. And of course, right, he stepped in there and he knocked out Aljamain Sterling. He did. Of course he did that, right? And he had to do that, and it was a great right hand. Was an early stoppage? Still, yes, it was. Absolutely. Like, it's quite rare that we see a fight stopped like that where the champion is trying to survive. Usually you'd see a little bit more time given to the champion, right? But of course, the industry plant Sean O'Malley is in the position to win the fight, so of course it will be stopped early under those circumstances. It makes sense for the UFC, of course. He then handpicks Chito Vera, right? He uses him as a human punching bag and gets that title defense. Credit to him, at least he defended his title. And of course, he has those 2 losses to Merab. And of course, you know, Song Yadong has never reached title contention, but I believe that if he was pushed in a similar way, like imagine Song Yadong was given the same career trajectory, like the same lineup of opponents that Sean O'Malley was gifted during his title run. Do you not think that Song Yadong would have gone to the same position that Sean O'Malley was able to get to? Maybe he wouldn't have been successful in that moment, right? Maybe he wouldn't have found that shot against Aljamain Sterling, right? And of course, they both fought Peter Yan. O'Malley picked up the win. Song Yadong had, in my opinion, an equally close fight to the Sean O'Malley-Peter Yan fight. In my opinion, he put up an equally as close fight with Peter Yan as Sean O'Malley did. But of course, the industry plant gets the robbery victory but Song Yadong gets the rightful loss, of course, right? But all I'm saying is that Song Yadong is a proper contender, earning his spot, paying his dues every step of the way. He has not been gifted easy layup fights really at all. Maybe the only one that you could point to and say it was an easy layup fight would have probably been, when I think about it, probably just Marlon Moraes, because he did go up against Marlon Moraes after a couple of losses that he picked up when he was obviously on a steep decline. I think it was after the Rob Font knockout loss. So yeah, that was probably the closest thing to like a layup for Song Yadong, right? Using an older guy as like a stepping stone for him. But of course, most recently, right, Song Yadong did have that controversial victory against Henry Cejudo, which technical decision, eye poke, right? What a great thing to have on the record there. So I'm not a big fan of that, of course, although it's not exactly Song Yadong's fault necessarily for the ruling of the fight, but the man was absolutely putting his fingers in Henry Cejudo's face, like without a doubt, right? So I know that does kind of cloud some people's opinions on him, but despite that odd result, I still rock with Song Yadong at the end of the day. But besides the resume, like after watching some tape on these dudes, right? I hate fucking saying the word tape. I feel like it's so pretentious to say that I'm watching tape as if I'm some kind of an analyst. Now I'm just some retard in my fucking room talking about fights at the end of the day. Watching their footage, right? Watching their fights back, I found that Song Yadong has a fucking nasty left hook. Nasty, snappy, fast. I mean, of course, like Song Yadong in this fight does have the speed advantage, even though Sean O'Malley is probably much more accurate. Of course, like with the frame and like the T-Rex arms of Song Yadong, yeah, Sean O'Malley will cause Song Yadong a lot of issues if he stays on his bike and uses the lateral movement that he's very good at utilizing, right? He will definitely frustrate Song Yadong in this fight. But Sean has rarely had to fight off a truly like dynamic striker like Song Yadong throughout his entire career, who, besides Peter Yan, of course, is dynamic like Song Yadong on the feet, right? Who can really trouble Sean O'Malley on the feet? Of course, Chito Vera, he's very dangerous, right? He does have some power, but the man, he's just so averse to actually letting his hands go. Song Yadong doesn't exactly have that issue. He has excellent boxing, and like I said, that left hook is absolute money, especially going into a matchup against Sean O'Malley. Because if Sean O'Malley gets in there and he starts throwing combinations and feeling himself in there, Song Yadong will have every opportunity to crack him with that left hook. And that is a particular weakness of Sean O'Malley's time after time after time, opponent after opponent after opponent. Sean O'Malley has shown a propensity to be caught with the left hook. And he definitely eats him, right? He 100% eats him. He eats him right up, right? Sean O'Malley, as I say, he has actually a very good chin, maybe like potentially even an underrated chin at this point. But I don't think he's fought anybody who hits as hard as Song Yadong or is even as fast as Song Yadong, dude. That left hook, I'm telling you, man, that left hook is so nasty. And it's not even just left hooks. It seems to just be left-sided attacks in general that Sean O'Malley leaves himself very much open for, especially when he's throwing. And that's exactly when Song Yadong lands his left hook, right? He lands that left hook while his opponent's throwing. He slips off the center line and lands that thing right on the chin. And that's really his money shot, man. Song Yadong can crack. He really can. Although Song Yadong is also quite hittable, it has to be said, right? He has decent head movement, but as the fight progresses and he starts to fade a little bit, he does become noticeably more sloppy with his defense. But same does go for Sean O'Malley here. But Song will most definitely have to get use out of that head movement because he has to avoid those 1-2s down the middle. He cannot just shell up and allow Sean O'Malley to spam 1-2s through his guard, right? That will just bust up the nose and lead to accumulative damage and allow Sean O'Malley to snowball in this fight, I believe. And I'm not sure if I trust too much in Sean O'Malley's mentality, right? I said it before the rematch with Merab that I feel like his whole mystique, right? His whole undefeated mystique was gone, right? Because he had that excuse with the Chito Vera fight because it was the perennial nerve, right? He always brings up the fucking nerve as if Chito didn't cause that to happen. But I get it, right? People will call that a fluke, and Sean O'Malley called it a fluke, and he was able to, I guess, rationalize that one in his head and remain mentally undefeated. But after the Merab fight, the way that he was talking, all that, like changing his entire life up, stop jerking it, right? Acting like all this shit's going to make a fucking difference. Then he goes out there and he gets embarrassed, man. Way worse than the first time. I feel like he's lost that confidence that took him so far. That delusion is no longer there, right? And I don't mean delusion in a negative way. No, dude, being delusional is honestly a prerequisite to become a high-level MMA fighter. You do really have to believe in yourself to a ridiculous degree. You kind of do. And Sean O'Malley did, but I don't really sense that belief anymore. And like people take that and they see him being more drawn back and more humble now, and they act like that'll make a difference. But nah, that's genuinely never the case, right? When a fighter suddenly draws back their personality and changes their lifestyle completely, like when does that ever make a huge difference, especially when that is a former champion? And I'll always use the example of Conor McGregor leading into the second fight with Dustin Poirier, trying to be all nice, this and that, whatever, and everyone acted like, man, Conor McGregor, dude, he's sounding really locked in right now, man, he's being so respectful, and then he gets fucking knocked out for the first time in his career. Sean O'Malley stops jerking it, allegedly, leading up to the Merab rematch, and then he gets done way easier than the first time, and sub for the first time in his career, right? And Merab really is not even known as a finisher whatsoever, but man, he could have been fooled against Sean O'Malley that second time around, dude. It seems like sometimes the lifestyle changes are more for the fighter, right? More to prove something to themselves more than anything. But you also have to remember what got you to the dance in the first place. But when it comes to my actual prediction of the fight, I'm not absolutely set on it, but as things currently stand, I am leaning towards Song Yadong, right? After watching back their fights, I've come to the conclusion that Song Yadong will probably crack Sean O'Malley at some point, right? He can also utilize his wrestling to kind of mix up Sean O'Malley, because as we saw when that takedown threat is there, as Merab showed it, like you can really overwhelm this guy and force him to be quite gun shy and also a little bit sloppy, right? He was quite sloppy against Merab the first time and the second time. He did not look anywhere near as technical and as sharp and as fluid as he did in previous fights, especially against guys like Chito Vera, right? Because he kind of needs someone standing directly in front of him in order to enter that kind of flow state and let his hands go like that. And with Sean O'Malley referring to like a possible retirement, like whether he's being sarcastic or not, just the fact that he's even putting it out there is interesting to me. It almost seems like he does have one foot out the door. I'm not too sure, man. I'm not sure if Sean O'Malley's head is fully in the game anymore, and I have a bad feeling about this one for him, but I'm very much ready to be proven wrong by Sean O'Malley because, listen, if he can channel that pre-Merab form, then listen, dude, he can go toe-to-toe with Song Yadong and beat the dude, right? He had a very close fight with Peter Yan, right? Close, competitive, I suppose. He clearly lost, but he did go toe-to-toe with Peter Yan in that fight. No one can take that away from him, right? He does have skills, and he may even be underrated at this point. Maybe I'm even underrating him, right? That's very, very possible. However, yes, I'm currently leaning towards Song Yadong, and as I said in my last video, I will put out my full card predictions in the coming days, most likely on Monday, so look forward to that. But that does conclude my thoughts on this fight. I did want to make a video just focusing on this fight in particular because I had some thoughts to share after watching back some tape, as I said earlier, right? But yeah, that does conclude my thoughts. Let me know in the comment section below whether you agree, whether you disagree, what your thoughts are on this fight, what your prediction for this fight is. Are you excited for UFC 324? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, guys, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next one.